weakness. He then acknowledged to me that the renewal of his friendship with Armadale had been clouded, through the whole period of their intercourse in London, by his own superstitious misgivings. He had obeyed the summons which called him to the rector's bedside, with the firm intention of confiding his previsions of coming trouble to Mr. Brock; and he had been doubly confirmed in his superstition when he found that Death had entered the house before him, and had parted them, in this world, forever. More than this, he had traveled back to be present at the funeral, with a secret sense of relief at the prospect of being parted from Armadale, and with a secret resolution to make the after meeting agreed on between us three at Naples a meeting that should never take place. With that purpose in his heart, he had gone up alone to the room prepared for him on his arrival at the rectory, and had opened a letter which he found waiting for him on the table. The letter had only that day been discovered, dropped and lost, under the bed on which Mr. Brock had died. It was in the rector's handwriting throughout, and the person to whom it was addressed was Midwinter himself. Having told me this, nearly in the words in which I have written it, he gave me the written paper that lay on the table between us. "Read it," he said, "and you will not need to be told that my mind is at peace again, and that I took Allan's hand at parting with a heart that was worthier of Allan's love." I read the letter. There was no superstition to be conquered in my mind. There were no old feelings of gratitude toward Armadale to be roused in my heart; and yet, the effect which the letter had had on Midwinter was, I firmly believe, more than matched by the effect that the letter now produced on me. It was vain to ask him to leave it, and to let me read it again, as I wished, when I was left by myself. He is determined to keep it side by side with that other paper which I had seen him take out of his pocket-book, and which contains the written narrative of Armadale's dream. All I could do was to ask his leave to copy it, and this he granted readily. I wrote the copy in his presence, and I now place it here in my diary, to mark a day which is one of the memorable days in my life. Boscombe Rectory, August 2nd. My dear Midwinter, for the first time since the beginning of my illness, I found strength enough yesterday to look over my letters. One among them is a letter from Allan, which has been lying unopened on my table for 10 days past. He writes to me in great distress, to say that there has been dissension between you, and that you have left him. If you still remember what passed between us when you first opened your heart to me in the Isle of Man, you will be at no loss to understand how I have thought over this miserable news, through the night that has now passed, and you will not be surprised to hear that I have roused myself this morning to make the effort of writing to you. I want no explanation of the circumstances which have parted you from your friend. If my estimate of your character is not founded on an entire delusion, the one influence which can have led to your estrangement from Allan is the influence of that evil spirit of superstition which I have once already cast out of your heart, which I will once again conquer, please God, if I have strength enough to make my pen speak my mind to you in this letter. It is no part of my design to combat the belief which I know you to hold, that mortal creatures may be the objects of supernatural intervention in their pilgrimage through this world. Speaking as a reasonable man, I own that I cannot prove you to be wrong. Speaking as a believer in the Bible, I am bound to go further, and to admit that you possess a higher than any human warrant for the faith that is in you. The one object which I have it at heart to attain is to induce you to free yourself from the paralyzing fatalism of the heathen and the savage, and to look at the mysteries that perplex and the portents that daunt you from the Christian's point of view. If I can succeed in this, I shall clear your mind of the ghastly doubts that now oppress it, and I shall reunite you to your friend, never to be parted from him again. I have no means of seeing and questioning you. I can only send this letter to Allan to be forwarded, if he knows, or can discover, your present address. Placed in this position toward you, I am bound to assume all that can be assumed in your favor. I will take it for granted that something has happened to you or to Allan, which to your mind has not only confirmed the fatalist conviction in which your father died, but has added a new and terrible meaning to the warning which he sent you in his death-bed letter. On this common ground I meet you. On this common ground I appeal to your higher nature and your better sense. Preserve your present conviction that the events which have happened, be they what they may, are not to be reconciled with ordinary mortal coincidences and ordinary mortal laws, and view your own position by the best and clearest light that your superstition can throw on it. What are you? You are a helpless instrument in the hands of fate. You are doomed, beyond all human capacity of resistance, to bring misery and destruction blindfold on a man to whom you have harmlessly and gratefully united yourself in the bonds of a brother's love. All that is morally firmest in your will and morally purest in your aspirations avails nothing against the hereditary impulsion of you toward evil, caused by a crime which your father committed before you were born. In what does that belief end? It ends in the darkness in which you are now lost, in the self-contradictions in which you are now bewildered, in the stubborn despair by which a man profanes his own soul, and lowers himself to the level of the brutes that perish. Look up, my poor suffering brother! Look up, my hardly tried, my well-loved friend, higher than this! Meet the doubts that now assail you from the blessed vantage-ground of Christian courage and Christian hope, and your heart will turn again to Allan, and your mind will be at peace. Happen what may, God is all-merciful, God is all-wise. Natural or supernatural, it happens through Him. The mystery of evil that perplexes our feeble minds, the sorrow and the suffering that torture us in this little life, leave the one great truth unshaken, that the destiny of man is in the hands of his Creator, and that God's blessed Son died to make us worthy of it. Nothing that is done in unquestioning submission to the wisdom of the Almighty is done wrong. No evil exists out of which, in obedience to His laws, good may not come. Be true to what Christ tells you is true. Encourage in yourself, be the circumstances what they may, all that is loving, all that is grateful, all that is patient, all that is forgiving, toward your fellow men, and humbly and trustfully leave the rest to the God who made you, and to the Saviour who loved you better than His own life. This is the faith in which I have lived, by the divine help and mercy, from my youth upward. I ask you earnestly, I ask you confidently, to make it your faith, too. It is the mainspring of all the good I have ever done, of all the happiness I have ever known. It lightens my darkness, it sustains my hope, it comforts and quiets me, lying here, to live or die, I know not which. Let it sustain, comfort, and enlighten you. It will help you in your sorest need, as it has helped me in mine. It will show you another purpose in the events which brought you and Allan together than the purpose which your guilty father foresaw. Strange things, I do not deny it, have happened to you already. Stranger things still may happen before long, which I may not live to see. Remember, if that time comes, that I died firmly disbelieving in your influence over Allan being other than an influence for good. The great sacrifice of the atonement, I say it reverently, has its mortal reflections, even in this world. If danger ever threatens Allan, you, whose father took his father's life,